Hello and welcome to Profiles. I'm your host, Paulette Payne. We've got an exciting show in store for you today. Members of the Atlanta Roller Girls are in the studio to talk about the fast-paced, highly intense, full-body contact sport of roller derby. And later in the show, author Ruth P. Watson will join us to talk about her latest novel, Blackberry Days of Summer, during our Artist Spotlight. Well, if you know anything about derby matches from the 70s, then you know the hits, jabs, and rail tossings were simply staged wrestling matches on wheels. And while today's version of derbying hasn't lost its competitive edge, the stage plays are now things of the past. But rest assured, the hits, bruises, and pains are all very real. Here to tell us more are members of the Atlanta Roller Girls, Haight Ashbury and Sissy Splasek. Haight and Sissy, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
So glad you could join us. Now first, let's get it clear. Haight and Sissy, are they your real names or are they your stage names?
They're skate names.
Skate names.
Yes. Well,
thank you for the clarity.
Well, just because stage names, we want people to know that roller derby is real, that it's a real sport. Everything that they see is just completely spontaneous.
Spontaneous, wow, and very intense. Very intense. Well, tell us about the Atlanta Roller Derby Girls.
Well, this is our 8th season. We were founded in 2004 by Tanya Hyde, and we have been skating. We used to skate out in Stone Mountain, and I believe, 4 years ago, we moved in town, so now we're at the Yarib Shrine Center on Ponce.
Oh, wonderful. So our viewers can go right down to Ponce and check out a show once a month.
Yes, yes. They should buy tickets in advance, though.
Buy tickets in advance. Okay, so tell us, how did you get involved in roller derbying? What's your story?
You should tell yours first.
Because I'm an old timer.
No, because she has roots in the real OG roller girl derby.
Okay, so I'm originally from Austin, Texas, and growing up there and going to high school, there was this crazy, flyer in a bar that said, "Hey, come down and see this new sport we've just invented." So a couple of my girlfriends and I went and watched and saw. It must have been, I don't know, the second or third bout to ever happen of this new version of roller derby that they had created, and fell in love with it and decided that next time I lived somewhere for longer than a year or two, I was gonna find out if they had a league and try out, and moved to Atlanta, and here I am 5 years later.
And you've been hooked ever since?
Ever since.
And what about you?
A friend of mine decided she was going to try out, and I thought, wow, that's so cool. And I used to go and watch her skate, and I was a spectator for a couple of years, and really, really wanted to try out, but wasn't sure, and I thought I was too old, and it was desk school, and she said, no, you should do it, you should definitely do it. So I did, and I've never, ever regretted it.
So tell us, how do you prepare, how do you train to become a roller girl?
You do a lot of skating. We don't just throw people in right away. You have to try out. You have to master a set of basic skills. And a lot of people, and including myself, I know I practiced skating for about 6 months before I even got to the tryouts. And then we teach people skills and kind of move them through before we let them actually play roller derby to make sure that they're safe for contact.
Okay. And so we were talking about earlier, amid all of the bruises, the broken legs, the broken noses, and all of the trauma that you endure physically, you still have this passion about the sport. And I think that is so fascinating.
Well, I mean, I feel like it's sort of like any athlete. If you're playing soccer, you have broken ankles, you have torn ACLs. If you're playing football, you're having to deal with a whole bunch of injuries associated with full contact sports. Swimmers, it's their rotator cuff. So I feel like it's just while we do get injured, it's the level that we're practicing and playing at. It is a full contact sport, and it is super high intensity, and we care passionately about it. And injuries happen, but I feel like no more or no less than anyone playing at that level athletically.
Certainly, certainly.
And we are very careful, and we wear safety gear. And so in a lot of ways, I don't think it's as dangerous as some sports. Like I ran before I played derby, and I had my share of falls running, and had knee surgery before I started skating, and haven't had to have surgery. Really
Probably because you're on wheels. Let's just attribute it to the wheels.
Yeah, but we have helmets, we have mouth guards, we wear elbow and wrist and knee pads, and so we do what we can to protect ourselves.
And that's critical. And you know, for our viewers watching, don't just put on your skates and not put on your helmet, because that's very critical. Very critical. Well, tell us about the league. I assume that you have the league and there are various teams under that league. Can you talk to us a little bit about what that looks like?
We have a league that has about 60 or 70 skaters, and within the league we have 4 home teams that play each other through the season. And then we also have an all-star team, which is a travel team that represents Atlanta nationally and really internationally. We also have a B team, which is kind of like our JV team, that's also a travel team that's building up to possibly one day sending skaters to the A team. So we're very busy.
Very, very busy, to say the least, because not only do you skate, but you also hold offices or positions in the organization. So I believe I understand correctly. You do the PR and you do the marketing, and other ladies do other things. So you wear multiple hats in addition to being families and the caretaker of a dog.
Yes.
So you're juggling many things simultaneously.
Yes.
And apparently you do it very well.
Oh, thank you. Depends on the day.
Some days are better than others. But I think that's another reason why we're so invested in this, is that, you know, it's ours. You know, not only are we practicing and becoming stronger athletes, we're the captains and the co-captains of these teams. We're the head of PR, head of marketing, you know, the head of business, the president. All of these people are people who skate and who care deeply about, you know, how the business is run, so that we're invested in it in a different way than I think other people are with, you know, what they're doing as a hobby or as a business. We're doing everything we love, all for this one thing.
Right. So it's become who you are, basically, in addition to the other things that make up who you are.
Oh yeah, it definitely kind of gets in there.
And you were talking about how addictive it is.
It is, yeah. Which is why you keep going back, even though there are the aches and pains and the risk of being injured. But derby is a very fast sport, fast-moving sport, and so it's really fun to watch, but it's really fun to play, so that you get this adrenaline rush that is just incomparable. Like I said, running was not that exciting. This is exciting every time. And the way that derby is structured, you don't have to know all of the rules, I think, to follow it. So it's fun to watch. There's always a lot of action on the track. We play in short periods called jams that are 2 minutes. And one of the nice things about being a player, too, is that every jam is 2 minutes. Then there's another 30 seconds, and there's another one. So you're always going back for more.
Gotcha. Wow, very exciting, very exciting. So tell us, what can a fan or a spectator who's never been to a game like myself, what can we expect to experience on game day?
Well, first of all, you're going to show up at the Shriners Center, Shriners Temple, and you're usually going to encounter people tailgating, people setting up their coolers and having barbecue, and just like you would at any other, you know, big sporting event, which is really neat. And then you can come in, and we have a courtyard set up with live bands, live local bands, and vendors. You can get, you know, awesome popsicles. You can get cool little T-shirts and artwork and all that kind of stuff. And then we'll get you inside, and you can sit there. And what's amazing, we were talking about earlier, is that with other sports, you know, you can see the action, but you don't feel quite as much that you're part of it. Whereas with us, you can sit 10 feet from the track. So the only thing between you and a skater is 10 feet of air, you know, and a piece of caution tape. So you're right there, and you're involved, and the energy is really high, and everyone's excited, and I think it feeds off of the energy, and we as skaters, that's part of what's what Haight was talking about, is that adrenaline rush. It's like practicing and playing roller derby is really fun. But playing roller derby in front of a sold-out crowd of people that are cheering, and there's music, and there's announcers, is a totally different level. And it gives people who are willing to put in a lot of really hard work a chance to be a part of something they might not have ever had access to. You know, I played sports, individual and team sports, my entire life, and even at my best, I didn't have 700 people screaming my name.
And I'm sure that's a major rush.
Oh, yeah.
A major rush. Talk about the adrenaline.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking about, you know, your long-term goals. So because it's clear you have a huge following in Atlanta, what do you hope Atlanta roller derbies will be in the next 5 years?
Well, we would really like to see the league grow. And we would like to have more than 700 people there even. If we could fit some more people in, it would be great. But we would like to start having larger matches, bringing in more fans. We want to continue to grow the league. We want our national team to be, we want them to be nationally, internationally competitive. Well, they are competitive now, but we'd like to see them go very far in the championships.
And two, you want the Atlanta roller derby girls to be synonymous with the Atlanta Braves, the Atlanta Falcons, and all of the other major league sports that are in our state.
Absolutely. I mean, I think Atlanta is such a cool city for its sports following. You know, I lived in Chicago briefly, and that's a whole different world of, you know, teams that are fighting over each other, and, you know, Austin, which is very different as well. But being in Atlanta, it's like everyone's behind the Braves, everyone's behind the Falcons, everyone's behind the Hawks. And we would love to have it be, when you're thinking about these teams, you're thinking about the dream for women's basketball, and you're thinking about Atlanta Roller Girls, and that we're all at that same level.
Yeah, and if you continue doing what you're doing and drawing the crowds that you draw, I can guarantee, almost certainly, that will happen. Hayden, Sissy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having us.
Oh, my pleasure, my pleasure. And if you'd like to know more about the Atlanta Roller Girls, visit their website at www.atlantarollergirls.com. We'll be right back with our Artist Spotlight right after these messages.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today. Call or visit fatherhood